Hello, my name is Morgan Rosenbaum. This is my teacher work sample for Tarleton State University Fall 2025 Clinical Teaching Semester. A little bit about me. I am a fine arts major here at Tarleton State University, which means that I'm going for my Art K through 12 certification. A little bit about the district that I was placed at. I got placed at Stephenville ISD. This is in Stephenville, Texas. It is a 4A in Region 11. On our campus, we have about 3,600 students, but at the high school, we only have about 1,000. For my first placement, I was placed at Stephenville High School, and for my second placement, I got moved to Gilbert Intermediate, their intermediate school, which is their 5th and 6th grade campus. Our teacher-to-student ratio is 13-1, but the average class size for an art class was usually 25 to 28 students, especially for the lessons that I'm teaching. And we are predominantly white or white Hispanic mixed. A lot of students walk to this school. It's a very small town, a very tight-knit city. Moving on to my lesson planning, I planned this lesson for my 9th graders, my beginners, and we were teaching the concept of value and how to create a 3D drawing using only a 2D piece of paper and graphite. I'm going to move into my objectives first. Lesson 1, the students were given a worksheet and they needed to complete the worksheet with at least a 70% accuracy. Lesson 2, students were going to complete a still life drawing using a provided amount of objects, and they needed to complete this with a 70% accuracy. And then lesson 3, students created a still life with a collection of their own personal items. And they had a 70% accuracy degree here as well, but that was for multiple different things. And all of this is measured using different rubrics for each lesson. For my TEKS, we use Art Level 1 for our first set. And this is things like considering concepts and ideas from direct observation, identifying and understanding the elements of art, including value, and using visual solutions to create original artwork. By problem solving through direct observation. This is very important to our lesson. This is our meat and potatoes. Students need to be able to understand why and how we're using value, as well as figure out how to use value in a hard or tough situation. I included some ELA TEKS on here that are very important to me. I use English 1 to keep up with the level of my students. And my 2 TEKS that I chose were engage in meaningful and respectful discourse, listening actively, responding appropriately, and participating collaboratively, building on the ideas of others, and contributing relevant information. Students are sat in groups, sat at tables in groups, and they are encouraged the entire time they're working to use vocabulary as well as create a positive and constructive conversation when it comes to their artwork. We try to discourage any negative talk or negative self-talk. For my ELPS, these are focused towards listening, and it's responding with accuracy to oral directions or instructions, as well as using context to construct the meaning of descriptive languages. I wanted students to be able to ask questions as well. I want them to be able to be curious about this, and I'm trying to meet them where I can to invite that curiosity. For my CCRS, these are my speaking, and this focuses on group discussion as well, speaking actively, effectively, and respectfully towards each other, as well as engaging in reasoned dialogue with people who have different perspectives. For lesson 1, students in this lesson were given a worksheet, and we completed the first part of the worksheet with guidance. We created our own personal value scales as well as our own gradient scales that gave students an opportunity to practice using their new tools as well as their newly learned concepts. And then after students had completed this with me, students were given a pasta noodle, and once they had completed a accurate value drawing of their first pasta noodle, they were given a second, and so forth until they had completed the worksheet, or at least mostly completed the worksheet. In this worksheet, I was more focused on who completed the most value versus who completed the most shapes, because drawing is one of those things, it comes at your own pace. I didn't want students to feel pressured to slap something on the page and hand it to me. I wanted to see their actual understanding. So I encouraged students, while they did this worksheet, to discuss different things about each other's pasta shapes and offer each other critiques as they worked. Students completed this lesson in 2 days, which allowed me to take their papers on the first day and write feedback on every single paper. As an example is this second completed worksheet on the page. I gave all students feedback, and then they received their papers back and were allowed to use this feedback to go forward. And then after they gave me back, I gave them even more feedback, but this was more moving forward into our other projects. Lesson 2, we used our skills that we learned in our value worksheet to create a small still life drawing that used geometric shapes in the classroom. In this lesson, students needed their personal iPads that they got from the school, and they took a photo of some geometric shapes we had set up into a still life, and then students used their iPads to manipulate this photo into black and white, and then we created a accurate representation of the value on the photo. And for this project, I was less strict on the actual lining or drawing and more strict when it came to the actual value scale, because that's what I was looking for. I wanted students to have an opportunity to practice this skill before they got into their major project. I also wanted students to be able to build confidence. When it comes to the art classroom, a lot of students feel uncomfortable performing for somebody that they're not very familiar with, or maybe don't trust. And so I wanted this activity to show students that they could trust me to view their artwork and not criticize them, but also trust their own artistic ability in creating things going forward. Moving on to lesson 3, this is our unit NCAP, so our large project. Students were sent to take photos of a still life set up in their own home using 5 items that represented them. If students didn't do so, they were provided with a still life in class, as you can see from these like random items on our drawings that I have here for examples. And this was a multi-day process. We started with applying grids to our paper, and then we applied a grid to our photo, as well as turned our photo into black and white. And then we began to apply our shapes onto our grid and then our values onto our grid to create a large value drawing. And I have some examples here on screen. This allowed students to practice things like blending, identifying certain values on the page, as well as using other things that we've learned in previous classes like contour drawings, which you can see from one of these examples. He has completed a contour drawing. And this allowed me to really reinforce that kind of knowledge. For building knowledge and instructional strategies, for the entire class, I like to use the I do, we do, you do modeling system. This allows students to get an example of what they're about to do, an opportunity to practice what they should be doing, and then they are set free to learn autonomy with what they are going to do. Using this, I also like to emphasize on previously learned things like observation and form, and I use these to build confidence with students. Students with IEPs are provided with opportunities for lots of breaks, or they can have pre-drawn shapes. Since we are focusing more on the value and shading, I'd like to see their understanding of value maybe more than their understanding of form. All instructional materials, including any PowerPoints, any worksheets, anything completed in class, were all placed onto the students' Canvas, which they can easily access with their personal iPads, especially for students that were gone or placed into ISS. So those students were able to keep up with us as a class. With my ESL students, I really focus on vocabulary. It's really important to me that they're able to converse and talk about their artwork. And I want to create an inquiry within them when it comes to art, so that they feel like they need to learn more art words and get more into art. I like to pair these students at tables with other ESL students so that no matter what, they always have a student that they can at least converse with and build with, but they also have the opportunity to see other students and build on different language skills. And all students have access to me whenever they need to. I was constantly monitoring the classroom and monitoring what they were up to in a certain extent when I let them have independent practice. All right, let's get into the assessment data. So looking at this together, we can look at my chart that has my student identifications as well as my number stats. And looking at my numerical stats, for my pre-assessment, a lot of students fell into the meets or the approaches, and this is based on a variety of things, including, how much of the worksheet was completed. If they only completed one or two things, they probably fell far below, or even their understanding of value. And this really allowed me to see what I needed to get into for my lesson 2. And after my lesson 2, you can see my post-assessment, my exceeds is a majority of the class, with still quite a large amount of students meeting expectations, with only a handful falling or approaching. If we look at my actually dissected assessment data, we can see that a lot of students struggled with certain identifying the values from photos or from observation. And then a lot of students really struggled with separating processing from final. And what I mean by that is that a lot of students see this ornate drawing in their mind that is the finished product, and they cannot figure out where to start or how to get there or which direction they need to take to get there. And this goes a lot with that visual, visual figuring it out. And so in the second project, I re-instructed and went back around to try and show students where and how to start, and also where and how to give yourself a break, or how to accommodate yourself in a way, like if something's too stressful to draw, move on to another section and then come back when you've gotten a break. Moving on to my reflection, this lesson really allowed me to practice redirection and reinstruction. I was able to assess before each lesson, where do my students need me and how do my students need me. I really enjoyed the formatting that I wrote this lesson plan in using the template. It allowed me to see the direction that I needed to head in, as well as it gave me a starting point, an ending point, a middle point, things that I can do when I just really don't know what to do next. But it also provided me with opportunities to break it down, spread it apart, and then redirect and reinstruct where students needed me in that moment. Because no class is the same, no student is the same, no grade is the same. And breaking the lessons apart in days like this allowed me to also provide my students with lots and lots of feedback and progress, and it allowed me to build their confidence more as they spent more time on these large projects. I really plan on using this in the future, especially using a unit to umbrella a large term, such as using the unit value to teach 3 different lessons that taught 3 different interpretations of this value, like working them up to a large project. And that is my final slide. Thank you for listening, and thank you Tarleton State University for their great teacher education program. Have a nice day.